Welcome to the results and discussion section of our presentation. So the first independent variable that we're going to be looking into is size. In our experiment, there are two options for size. You could either have trials where a smaller shape was changing or trials where a larger shape was changing. Just by taking a quick look at this graph, you might mistakenly think that the smaller trials were faster than the larger trials. However, there was no significant difference between the two, so there's no effect of size. So we didn't expect for there to be no effect of size on the reaction time for the change blindness task. So we hypothesized that trials with smaller shapes changing would have faster response times compared to trials with larger shapes changing. This was because of the Symes et al. Article that we read, which had significant results showing that smaller objects changing were found faster than larger shapes changing in change blindness tasks. So not only did the results that we see differ from our hypothesis, it also varied from what was found in the previous literature. So now we're going to move on to the next independent variable, which is emotion. So as you can see here, the difference between the happy trials and the fear trials is much larger than what could be perceived on the graph for the large and small trials. This is because there is a main effect of emotion in our data. So as you can see, happy trials were a fair amount faster than fear trials. So this actually matched up with what our hypothesis was. So we predicted that happy trials would be completed faster compared to fear-inducing trials. This also supported the Bendel et al. Article, which suggested that positive emotions are found faster than neutral emotions, in visual search tasks. However, it varied from the results that we had in the Dominguez-Borges et al. Article, which actually suggested that fear might have faster response times. This was only based off of marginally significant data, hence why I said suggested instead of showed. But overall, the happy trials were faster than the fear trials, so our hypothesis was supported. And one of the articles used in the previous literature section was supported, but however, one was not by the data that we have. So now we're going to talk about. So for our interaction, there was a significant difference in how the happiness effect was between the two different sizes. As you can see here, the happiness effect is larger in trials that have larger shapes changing in them, because the difference between the fear and the happiness is greater than the difference between the fear and happiness trials for small objects changing. So this did not support our hypothesis either, because we expected there to be a main effect of size and that the small effect would vary between emotions. So the interaction is difficult to connect to the articles. However, since there was no main effect of size, it obviously disagrees with the Symes et al. In fact, if we go back to look at the graph, one more click. So if we go back to look at the graph, in the happy trials, the happy trials with large shapes changing actually have a smaller response time than the happy trials with small objects, which directly goes against what was found in the Symes et al., which said that all trials where there were smaller shapes were found faster than trials with larger shapes changing. So for a quick overview of our experiment, so we looked into how size and emotions can affect the reaction times in change blindness tasks. The participants were shown trials that either had a background to induce fear or happiness, and then within that, each trial had a version where a large shape was changing and a version in which a small shape was changing. Participants would obviously only be shown one at a time, but yeah. So once again, size had no significant effect on the participants' reaction time. However, happy trials were faster than fear trials, and the happiness effect was larger in trials with large shapes changing compared to trials with small shapes changing. Okay, so basically what this means is we don't know that a rectangle changing to a circle isn't more noticeable than a rectangle changing into a square, or vice versa, or any other combination of these. So this could lead to certain trials having faster reaction times, not due to whether or not the background was fear-inducing or happy-inducing, or whether or not the shape was small or large, but just because the shapes changing were so different from each other that it was able to be noticed faster by the participants. So that is something that should be looked into before researchers continue, before anyone does an experiment similar to this or continues looking into this, just to make sure that there isn't any confounding variables there. So a future direction that we could take with this is looking into how the colors of the shapes transposed on top of the background image affects response time, and if there's an interaction between the color and the emotion the background induces. I believe that there could be a significant interaction between these two because there are certain colors that are associated with different emotions. So there are certain colors that are considered happy, which according to the Binzak, Fugate, and Franco article I found is these two shades of blue and yellow. Or there could be a difference in the reaction times when there are colors that were associated with fear. And would trials that had a color that was considered happy and had a trial with a background that induced happiness have a shorter reaction time? And would there be an effect on if there was a happy color matched with a fear-inducing background for a trial? And what about vice versa? How will this affect the reaction times in change blindness studies? We don't know, so I think that could be something very interesting to look into and possibly have a future research project on, or a future study by someone. Thank you so much for all of you guys coming to listen to this. Here are all of the resources that we used, or 3 articles, and the 4th article I used for just the different colors as being associated with emotions. I hope you all have a wonderful day. Bye!